today's lesson, in part 3, we're going to talk about some other drawing tools, and that's going to be the line, the arc, the spiral, rectangular grid tool, and polar grid tool. So let's start with the line segment. If you click the line segment tool, to create a line, it's simply click and drag, you let go, it creates your line segment. Now, a couple keyboard shortcuts, keyboard modifiers that can work really well with lines. First, when you click and hold and drag, you can create a line at any angle. If you hold down the Shift key, you'll see immediately it locks it to 0 degrees. Or, if you get close enough, it'll do 45 or 90s. So it actually locks to 45-degree increments, making it much easier to draw a straight line across your page. The only thing I will mention is make sure you hold down Shift through the whole process. So at this point, if I wanted to create this line, I'm going to let go of my mouse first, and then I'm going to let go of Shift. So that's the line segment tool, I should say. Well, actually, one more item with the line segment tool before I continue. Using Alt as a modifier, so if I hold down Alt, you'll see it creates the line segment from the center point outwards. You can see it's expanding from the center, rather than if I don't hold Alt and click and drag, I create from one point or point A to point B. Let me just get rid of these pieces. The next tool is the arc tool. And the arc tool, again, can be achieved through click and drag, and it creates an arc. And of course, depending on the direction that you drag will determine the direction of the arc. Once you let go, the arc is created. Now, if you wanted more options, just like with any of the other tools we were talking about, you'd simply click on your artboard, and then you can set everything from the x-axis, length, to the y-axis, the type, open or closed. This would be an open arc. Closed arc would basically connect the two endpoints together. And then you can choose where you want your base and the slope of the arc. Other tools you have in here, the spiral tool. Again, if I click and drag and create a spiral, there it is. If I spin this thing around, you get hypnotized. No, just kidding. But it does not create more spirals. So you can see I can spin this as much as I want. It's not creating more spirals. Well, what we can do is we can use the up and down arrow modifier to add in more spirals or remove spirals. And that's using the up and down arrow while I am drawing the shape in. If I wanted to specify the amount, I can simply click and then you can choose radius, decay, and decay is the amount or distance basically from this spiral to this spiral to this spiral to this spiral. So how fast it's decaying, how many segments you want, and the style. Everything can be achieved there through a click. If you wanted to adjust the decay while dragging or creating the spiral, you can hold down Control. Control will adjust the amount of decay on a spiral as you drag. When you let go of Control, of course, it's just adjusting the size of the spiral. Your last two tools are the rectangular grid and the polar grid. Well, the rectangular grid is much like a table. If you click, you're going to get rectangular grid options. A width, a height, horizontal dividers, which would be essentially rows, vertical dividers, which are essentially columns, and you can even skew those as well in your options box. When you click OK, the grid gets created. Now, if I click and drag to create a grid, and then again, I use my up and my down arrows, up arrow is going to increase the number of rows in this case, down arrow is going to decrease the number of rows. Right arrow would increase the number of columns, left arrow would decrease the number of columns. So you can use the up and the down arrows and the left and the right arrows to adjust essentially how many columns and rows you have with that tool. Without actually getting into it, because this video is getting a bit too long, the polar grid tool is going to function the exact same way as the rectangular grid tool, and of course, instead of being a rectangular grid, it's essentially a circular grid. So there you have it. Those are some additional basic drawing tools that you have in Illustrator. In the next video, in part 4, we're going to talk about selecting these shapes, resizing them, and moving them around your artboard.